Hey guys, it's ViewMasters Reactions, and we're back with Critical Role doing the Q&A watch-along parties for episodes 4 through 6. I'm going to start with episode 4. I'm going to do it like last week. Each segment's about 15 to 20 minutes, give or take. Some are shorter than others. So I'm going to do it like last week. I'm going to break them down into 15-minute segments. We'll do episode 4, we'll talk about it, and then we'll jump into 5 and then 6. We have a new crew. The way I'm going to do the thumbnails on this batch of 3 is we have Laura Bailey, we have Tal'dorei Jaffe, and we have Liam O'Brien along with Sung Jin. I believe he's a director or a writer or maybe a couple things, but I'm pretty sure he's like the director or something like that. I don't know much about him. I've only seen him talk in a couple episodes of things we watch, but it's never like a lot. It's like usually pretty quick. He's usually like in and out, and I've definitely seen him. I definitely recognize him. I see him right in front of me now because I have it freeze framed. Last we saw with them though, we had a different crew of people. We had a different director slash writer slash producer guy. Very cool, chill guy, but he was very nervous. He said that he'd never done a live thing like that before, which is surprising to me. But hey, I guess a lot of these people are new to this. The only reason they're familiar with it is because they do it every week on a live stream, so they're probably quite comfortable. But I do see people like Sam and them get very red in the face. They blush. They get very nervous still. I guess it's because even though you live stream every week, you're not doing it with people like right there interacting with you. So I guess you still would get the nerves and have like weird, awkward times and stuff. Sam Riegel blows my mind because he seems like nothing would faze him. But then last week he busted into that Pull on My Beads song at the end and he was getting really red in the face and stuff. But last week we had a different crew. We had Matt Mercer, we had Travis, we had Sam, and we had that other dude. I'm sorry, I forget his name. I just know the other names because I've seen them all 100 times at this point. That guy I'd only seen like a couple times, like Sung Jin over here. The only one at this point we have not seen of the crew is Marisha and Ashley Johnson. So my guess is next week we'll get Marisha, Ashley Johnson. I feel like we'll get that female writer we saw in one of the Legend of the Making of the Vox Machina, there was like 100 thes, like the making of the cast of the Legend of Vox Machina. It was something like that. I feel like in one of those we saw this female writer. Her last name was like Mora or Moro or Mira or something like that. I don't know why, but she seemed like she had a great deal to do with the writing of it. So maybe we'll get her, maybe we'll get someone else. It's not important right now because right now we got to watch this. So you guys want to see more of what I do, full unedited reactions, all the shows on the channel, seasons ahead of what you're seeing. If you want to see more of this Vox Machina content all over the channel, check it out. If not, jump it in. This is episode 4 Q&A from the cast of Critical Role. Episode 4, Shadows at the Gates. Q&A. And it's over. They already watched it. That's how quick it happened.
I want to make a meta pigeon plushie.
Oh. A what?
Maybe I should.
A meta pigeon plushie? Is that what she said?
That would make me happy.
Or just a couple little band-aids on it.
Does it come pristine and you have to rough it up, or does it come pretty roughed up?
I would think pretty roughed up, but
Yeah.
that's so cute.
Right, little Velcro band-aids.
Oh my God. What if we just released like bandages with little meta pigeons on them?
I will buy it.
About merch items.
Look at the tower over here.
On stream.
This is literally how it happens.
This is how it happens.
There's usually.
They just be like face band-aids, specifically just for face, for like cool. Like,
Oh, just to look really cool.
He
Like,
looks
you don't
pretty
actually
young.
wanna
How
be
old's
the
that dude?
over a cut.
It really
no, like
how it works.
no one's face should ever get
Like,
damaged.
He
but just put
definitely
that
looks like the youngest of that crew, even though he's not the original
Yeah,
crew.
you can't joke about things here.
We are really careful these days. There's a series of people out in the distance right now who will just slowly write it down, and then it'll be in our.
Oh yeah, I heard some pencil
Oh,
scratching in the
I'm like,
distance
what
as
is
we're talking
hanging
about
off
the
of
band-aids.
Jaffe's head? I thought there was like a
Anyway,
giant
let's get off the
hair
band-aids
coming
and
off
let's
his
get
neck.
off
It's
some
a
questions,
wire
guys.
for the
Don't
earpiece.
mind. Well, first up, just like last episode of the watch party, we have some really cool
Yes.
concept art.
I love when they do the
of
concept
characters,
art.
And we're going to start off with Percy and with Allison.
Beautiful. They showed Scanlan
I just wanna
and
know what was
Grog
the process
last time, some
for
Matt
creating
Mercer stuff.
Percy for the Legend of Vox Machina.
Ah,
I mean, other than he had to be very pretty.
I don't know.
Succeeded.
He's got a nice jawline there. He's got almost like,
honestly, I will
almost
say
not
that the
serious
design
enough
department
though.
Hit him very quickly, and it was not.
I dig the way they went. Like that looks like
terribly
a
difficult
skinnier.
process, where it's just refined, but clearly has been away from money for a while. The gun design.
He's
took
refined but
quite a
away from
while,
money. That's
but-
a good way to put it.
Yeah, of just there was a lot of even stupider. Something that
See
clearly
the earpiece
doesn't work
coming out?
with
It literally
5 out of
looks like
6
a
like,
white
something that
hair
just
because you
breaks
can't
all
see the
time.
bottom
But
sometimes.
yeah, thankfully, you guys really understood the mechanism, so it was not hard to communicate, especially with the when we get to bad news with the lens system.
What was that,
I'm really
episode
glad that got used.
5 maybe?
think that-
Bad
yeah, that's
news.
all
He had the
Percy
lens like
was
chick chick
the
chick chick chick.
director.
It had all the
Just-
lenses.
He was like a critter from before, and I think it was just like when he got to talk to you and you guys were brainstorming, Percy's gun and such. I could always
Supervising director.
He's in Dreamland, and he really worked it, engineered it. Like I'm sure he even did like schematic drawings of how it like breaks apart,
Oh,
reassembles.
and sent it to me. I was like, this is actually one of the
I would
best
imagine.
presentations of these
That sounds
I've
like
ever
fun.
seen. I mean, I even remember having a conversation with some guy on the internet years ago who was like, I refurbish antique guns. Explain to me what they
It's
are.
funny to me that Liam and
"Those are
Laura
stupid.
are brother
Wouldn't
and
work
sister
well." I'm like,
characters.
I know, they don't.
Because they've connected themselves to each other
First one.
for like a decade
Yeah.
by
Really
that
bad.
choice.
There's a
Not that
reason
it's a
there's only
bad
one.
thing,
Well,
but
now that you have schematics,
I hope you stay
how long
friends.
until you have a functioning version.
They by their very nature are so bad that they will never work.
Well,
But yay,
Probably for the
wheelocks.
best.
Wheelocks are great.
Probably for the best.
yeah, probably.
They blow up.
Can we
Taliesin's
talk
got an
about
interesting
the
shirt.
Art, the original concept
What are
art
those?
that we
On
just saw go by, which is beautiful. But man, I love where we landed eventually because that art, as beautiful as it is very like there's so much panache to it, and it's
Yeah, it just
very in
doesn't
your
feel like
face.
Percy, right?
But the
much
final,
later on.
it's
Like,
much
I feel
more
like-
elegant and reserved, and it's just so dapper and perfect.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
has a
honestly, the other one
gold
makes
in
him look
The
too
change
young
was
and
definitely a
kind of
point of
almost
discussion
comical,
because
almost like too
we
happy.
definitely like the statement
He's got to have a more
change,
stoic
but
look.
change
I like the way
also,
they
I think
went.
that's, like, really
I've
cool.
agreed
Cool
with every
animation
choice they've
consistently.
made so far. There's
So,
not
yeah,
been
you
even
definitely
Silas.
like Liam nailed it on the head.
That
Like you said, evolution,
broad
like, a lot of
shoulder look.
panache, and then the
Sorry if
final
I'm talking
version
a
is
lot.
more like
I have to, for the
streamlined,
sake of my life.
for animation's sake, but also just kind of like where he is in the story.
He doesn't want to necessarily be noticed. He still wants to be who he is, but he doesn't
love
want to like
that.
stand out.
With the coat off, the shirt and vest.
I know.
I like that he keeps
hot.
the gloves on
Yeah.
as
I
well.
dig-
you
Percy's got a great
coat
look.
comes off, but the gloves
He
don't.
reminds me of somebody. I say this all the time.
Oh my, what are you gonna
Somebody
do with
from a
this
game
glove?
or an anime from way back.
Well, all
They
right,
hold-
let's
Well,
move on before this gets out of hand. Laura.
And she
we're
said she had a
moving on
thing
to
for
anything less
Percy.
sexy.
More with no shirt
Laura,
on
can you
Percy.
walk us through your
Last one, she
exploration
said.
of how you created Vex.
Wait, in like game or
No,
just,
no.
Like in this
animated
iteration?
Legend of Vex.
conversation.
Sure. I mean, I wanted her to obviously be sexy and hot. That was like, and I've said it before, like that is my one describer of her when we were originally creating the characters. I'm like, just make her hot. And that's what I want, obviously. But I wanted Vex to seem like, she is kind of conservative at the same time.
I feel like these are people they'd
and
want to
she's able
be.
to use her
If they had no kids or
her
husbands or
figure
wives
and
or
her,
something,
you know,
they
her
could just
looks
be
to her advantage when
themselves,
she
total
wants to.
attitude.
So I didn't want it to be present at all times. It's something that she can change as needed.
I like it.
And the quiver was
where we ended up.
I know we had a lot of talks about the quiver
Yeah.
as well because
Oh,
it's
that's
tricky.
all
It
the
was where it
different
sounds functional
spots?
versus aesthetic, qualities. So realistically, where quiver is currently placed is not tactically the best position to pull your arrow.
Technically, the waist is.
Yeah, but visually
How do you
it
animate
looked-
that?
Yeah, but everybody
Yeah,
in
it
all
animates
of
better and
everything
visually
I've ever
better, so
watched
we had
pull
to
it from
take
the
that
back.
leap of kind of like cheating a little bit
Legolas.
just for the sake of like the animation and the visuals.
Folding arrow. I remember the folding arrow. being-
I feel like,
arrows.
why wouldn't that be
feel
the?
like they
I
can
understand
fly
like from the side it might be faster, but I feel like
Stage combat. It's not
why wouldn't
ultimately
through time they've
realistic, but
done
it
that?
Seems that way.
That's fair. That's fair.
that's interesting.
And of course, last but not least, let's chat about Vex.
My God, I feel like they really went to her quick.
Well, I think the first thing that I wanted to dial in when I was seeing early stuff is it's always been important to me that he be lanky.
I picked
two
thumbnails that
lanky
mimic
heroes in this
one of
group.
each
I
of the
think
three of
first
them for each
round that came
episode.
back, he was sort of like
Laura is
broader in the
first.
shoulder area, and I wanted him svelted up a bit.
There we go.
We got this undercut version of Vax,
Which is hot.
Very hot.
It is.
See, that one on the
I like
left
the
is
tangled
too
up version
skinny,
of
I feel
Simon,
like,
too.
unless that's the one they used. I feel like he's a little too skinny there,
Steak with Simon.
and maybe a little too broad.
But I wanted to keep him lanky and spry, and then also I'm
Actually,
I'm
no,
glad
I
that
guess
we
that's his
got,
look,
like,
right?
his face. I don't know. I feel
That's
like
his look.
the sneaky guys
Looks,
in
I guess because
fantasy
he
are
doesn't have the
often
cape.
Sort of
He
these,
looks a little
they
skinnier,
have-
but that's pretty
I
much
don't know,
him.
They have a look, and I wanted to make sure that he has a boyishness.
You don't want him
Yeah, we
bulky.
always talked about
There was
that,
a
like, he had,
bulkier
like,
looking
almost an
version, the
innocence
first one
about
they showed.
his
You don't
face,
want him
you know?
bulky.
I
Especially
don't want to
since
go against the grain.
their brother
then
and
we also
sister, they
one
gotta
that
have a
talks about-
like a
I don't know
more
if we have this
slender
here or not,
look.
but dagger placement. Like there's 3 daggers. Are they all going on the back? Are they going on the
That was
front?
a complex.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, balancing like what makes sense.
I
for
always thought that
combat
with knives, whenever you have
tactically versus, like,
throwing knives, they're
aesthetic
usually
for
in a
drawing and
sheath
animation.
all together. Why wouldn't you put them in
I think
different
the twins
places?
were interesting. I
You
have a
lose your
problem with
sheath,
because
you're done.
Phil, who did the initial design passes, because of the nature of the characters, he loaded them up with belts. They had so many
Oh,
belts.
that's right. Max had a
Yeah,
ton.
so many. And I was like, bro, we can't track that many. Like,
This
you're
isn't
gonna
Final
kill the
Fantasy.
animators.
Like, we gotta stop.
And then they didn't let me
Unlimited
live it
ammunition.
down for the rest of the every time we have design wins, they're like, oh, careful, son, just kind of get all the belts, like get all the belts off, like. Yeah, just
Put so many belts on them. Take them off.
yeah.
But sneaky guys and belts, those go hand in hand. I understand. Lots of daggers, lots of
Don't
belts.
want your pants falling down.
I've
at the
seen
wrong
it done
moment.
before, but I mean,
Ruin the mission.
You can
And one
use
of your belts is
for all
already a
sorts
snake.
of-
So, you know, you're losing a belt.
Yeah, that's not being used for anything other than.
Other than being a snake.
Snakeness.
Yeah. So you need some other belts to hold up your bits and bobs, and you know, I get
your
it.
bits
While
and
the other
bobs.
busy doing other things.
Got belts for my belts.
Those belts could be worms. We
Oh
don't
my God, what
know.
if Simon had a little belt on? That would be so
Oh, can we put that in
cute. Is
later?
it too late
Put
to
a couple
add?
belts on Simon.
Can we put belts on Simon? And a pimp chain.
We'll get to it. Well,
And a
Like
pimp
mildly getting
chain.
PTSD right now.
Oh no, we're scarring Sunjin. No, we can't do that. But how about this? I'll fix it. I have a question for you.
Okay.
We're gonna take away the belts. No belts.
Cool.
Shadow at the Gates is paced almost kind of like a mini horror movie. Emphasis on the horror. Obviously, a lot from Campaign 1 was drawn upon, but were there any other inspirations that you?
I'm
drew
curious about this. That's a
on?
good
I
question
think I may
because
know
it was
one.
very supernatural.
Yeah, I mean, credit really goes to Young Heller because he's definitely like our metal horror guy. And
curious
so
what-
he definitely brought to the table of like, hey, I get where we're trying to go with the story, but how do we crank it even more? Like, how do we get more metal? I can't recall like specific references. Like
I
he's the one
want
that really
specific.
set the bone structure, and then all the Boris.
Like you know, people that do horror
like
like that, there's got to be
yeah,
something
kind of what I was saying during the
they
watch
pulled
party,
it from,
like,
like an idea or even
we
like
just knew going in there was a
just something
daunting
you
task,
liked.
'cause, like, to us, at least personally in our careers and as just as artists, like to do true horror like that it was a very hard task to kind of do. But yeah,
the skeletons. I swear. For some reason, reminded
should
me
check
of
out
Scrooged
how
with Bill Murray,
creepy
that
those
creepy
rates are.
skeleton-looking thing. Baron
Now, if you have
Munchausen.
any
If
insight
any of you guys
into
have ever
how
seen
these
Baron
rates were
Munchausen,
developed, I know race
this
is a very
look
common
reminded me of that
enemy creature that we see in
demonic
lots of
skeleton
different
head
fantasy horrors,
reaper.
but you guys really found your own voice.
With that outfit, right?
This is just a picture of Taliesin when he, you know, like 1,500 years
Yeah,
ago.
that's my prom photo.
Yeah.
Right there.
so yeah,
like
this
it.
was actually a very challenging task in the design phase because we had to create our own versions of these like
The
demonic
wraiths. Oh, they actually called them
creatures, you know,
wraiths.
the necrotic creatures.
I literally the whole
So,
episode was like
that
there are
first
wraiths to me, and
image
they
was
I
kinda
don't
like,
ever remember
what
them
I sketched
calling
up
them
on the
wraiths,
side,
but
like,
they actually had in
board
this
meeting and stuff. And then the second image was
animation
the initial
board
one that Phil Barassa did, and we essentially like elements of both. So the final version that you see in the show is kind of like just continually workshop between the two, take pieces of that, and just kind of like fuse it together. And then I think the finishing touch was like all like the red like ichor or tar just
Yeah, the black ichor coming
Yeah.
out.
like I remember I had
black
a meeting with,
ichor. That's the
our,
shit that was
like,
oozing
supervising
out of
director
them.
of animation. He's just like, man, those rays are really hard to animate because like we just added so much. There's so much going on. just to
Yeah.
keep because for that one, we
'Cause they're kinda,
definitely
like,
prioritized, like
Not
like
there,
dramatic
like
effects
disintegrating,
over
but they're
economy of animation. It was one of those
vanishing and
rare times
reappearing.
where, like we know this is gonna be hard to animate, but it's worth it. Like
It was
the
done
amount of
well.
stuff
I
that
very
we
much
added
enjoyed it.
just for the details, you know.
This may be a spoiler for the next episode, but there's a moment in the next episode and the rates in this episode that remind me a lot of like Junji Ito, like classic Japanese horror. And I just feel like that's not something that you see in a lot of animation that isn't just, you know, straight up anime horror. And I think that that's what transcended it, at least for me when I was watching it. I know a lot of people out there will agree that, you know, if you're watching something scary, you don't expect to see such visceral
I dig her.
creepiness.
In the beginning, I
don't
wasn't
know,
too
I just-
sure. I think they all had a
Vox, I
lot
guess,
of
is where I'm
nerves and
going
stuff.
with
She's
this,
great.
to
You could
really
tell she's
breaking the
a fan.
boundaries of animated
Mika
horror.
Burton.
And they don't give a shit. about
I will
that.
take
They're
you.
all over the place.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the.
Sometimes hosts don't know what the
Balance
heck
that
they're
challenge
talking
of,
about.
like,
And you're like, why are you even
in
here?
the
She
medium.
seems
But when we're,
legit.
like, thinking,
I buy her.
visualizing the sequences,
I will
we
be happy with her
kinda
for the
just
rest
kinda
of the
almost, like,
duration.
approach it in a live
Not that I
action
have
way.
a say.
Kind of just at a certain point disregard that we're in animation land and just go for the chill like impact and like language to the audience, you know? It's just cinema essentially. It's not live action, it's not 2D, it's cinema, it's storytelling, trying to get that connection with the audience, make them feel uncomfortable when we want them to, make them cry when we want them to. And then all the
Screw with
animation
their
stuff kinda
emotions
comes
is
after
what you're
that
saying,
once we
which
find
is
the right
true.
bones.
Well, we have a question from the good old folks at home who are watching.
Let's see what this
from
one is.
The chat from the viewers.
Viewer.
This is for everyone. Somebody out there said they didn't realize that any of the recording happened before COVID. What was it like making that transition to the home setups?
Oh, it was hard.
Yeah, I mean, hard
We
in a
talked
way,
about this in one of the
Saying
making
goodbye.
videos.
Yeah.
I
doing
feel like it would
we
be
all know how
better
to do that. and We're good
once
at
they
the
get used to
work,
it.
But we were so, so much went into the moment of coming together in a circle.
I mean, in their
God, we
case,
were
though, they're
so excited
playing
those
off
first
each
couple
other.
episodes
It's
of all of us
different.
being in that room together and like seeing
By
each other
myself,
behind
I'm
the
always
mic, 'cause
good at
real
just like
magic.
being
So glad it
on my
happened
own.
all.
But if you're in
Yes.
that
It
dynamic
definitely-
built
it definitely
around that,
hurt. It was
it's a little
not,
different.
It was not what. I'm so happy that we are who we are, that we could go into those separate rooms and definitely pull off what we did, which I don't know if, not to talk us up or anything, but I don't know if everybody could have done that. And we were very lucky to have the right people to make that
See,
happen,
I
the
feel
right
like-
director and the right,
I feel like being those
who are
people would
used
make
to
it
working in a
harder
vacuum.
to
And
be
we're in a
by.
time
Well,
when we
yeah,
are
yeah,
that
I guess
we
that's
have the
right.
capability
Yeah,
of, like,
okay,
Zoom,
he's
you
right.
know? So
I'm agreeing.
in situations like that conversation between Vex and Vax, that we were able to be on.
But what
the
I'm
call
trying to say
together.
is I
So
feel
even
like
though we were in our own
if you aren't
individual
that kind
home
of person,
setups,
it'd be
we were
easier
recording
for
at
you
the
to
same
do that.
time. Still, I just couldn't.
But I guess that's
make
not
eye
what he's
contact
saying.
with
It
Liam,
doesn't
but it still felt like he was
but-
sitting next to me.
It's different.
We can sense
It's
it
definitely
fast.
different.
Yeah.
I just feel like you'd be able to be like, sometimes you saw it where like Sam's singing the song and he gets a little shy. If you're by yourself in a room, you could be like, "Roar," and like do whatever you want. You don't have to be worried like, well, my cat's gonna say something. The kid, he's right there. He just looked at me. I don't care. He don't know nothing.
Yes.
He looks at me all the time. Look at him. He's like,
You know what?
what
I
are you
think
yelling?
on that note, it's time for the next
You guys
episode
can't see him.
of The Legend of Vox Machina. Thank you,
Thank you.
twin pooping bats.
All right, guys. So that was episode 4 Q&A. Like I said, we got Laura, Liam, Talzin, and Sung Jin. Also, Mika Burton. I think I'm saying her name right. She's a great host, interviewer, whatever you want to call her. I said this during the episode, but there is a lot of times I've seen things like this where the people doing it, I guess because this is done by Critical Role on their channel, in their studio, so to speak, they're doing it right. But I've seen so many things like this where they get somebody that doesn't seem to have a clue what they're talking about, pronounce the people's names wrong, don't know anything about the show or the characters or anything. She seems truly invested. And in the beginning, I was, kind of feeling her out last week. She didn't do anything wrong last week. It's just one of those things. I didn't know if we were going to get her on a weekly basis. I thought maybe because we were changing the cast and the players, like there are only 4 people each time. So I'm thinking maybe they're going to change the host up each time. But no, honestly, I dig her a lot. So I'm happy she's with us. She seems to be informative, knowledgeable, and not very nervous. The first Q&A, episodes 1 through 3, I feel like all of them were nervous. But my God, I mean, these were probably pretty much normal people. I mean, they're actors, voiceover people, stuff like that. They've done a million things. But even during this episode, they're talking about how was being on your own and having to do this through COVID, being like separated, build your own in-house studios, so to speak. How did that affect you? And Talzin was saying, I don't know if anyone else could have done it, people like us. And I was like, he's even said, I'm not trying to talk us up. And honestly, I feel like if anything, them being the people they are would make it more difficult to transition, like he said. I feel like someone like me, who isn't used to that dynamic of having all these people around you and playing off each other, they probably need that to kind of fuel what's going on. Not that they can't do it inside a private room or something. I just feel like the type of people they are, especially having done it that way forever since the beginning, that would be a much more comfortable, progressive, like productive environment. Whereas me, as you could see, I'm by myself all the time. I feel like it doesn't matter for me, honestly. I could be in a room with 30 people and still do this, and I don't get phased. I do it. I used to watch football games and have groups of people over and stuff. I don't shut up, and honestly, nothing really phases me. I don't get embarrassed. If anything, I might feel awkward sometimes, like Sung Jin was saying in this episode. Our goal is to make you feel awkward and uncomfortable, and that's why we watch these things. When you watch horror and wraiths screaming and ripping their flesh off and skeletal bony looking things screaming in the night, I don't watch it to go like, oh, I feel great about this. Inside, I wouldn't say scared, but you're like, you get emotional. You feel things. You're not just sitting there like, well, that's a beautiful wraith. And I mean, you're feeling things. You know what I mean? I don't even know where I just went. I think I went into 20 different things and focused on every question without possibly having answered any of them. I don't know. I go into rants and I think I just jumped from one thing to the next. You guys let me know what I just did, because I'm going to edit it and it's probably going to look ridiculous. Maybe it all made sense, but I feel like I get so hyper and go on tangents with this. I said it during the episode, but I don't think I finished. I'm going to use a different thumbnail for each character that has joined us for this Q&A. So this one we got Laura Bailey. Next I'm going to use Liam O'Brien, and then we'll end with Taliesin Jaffe. Sorry, Sung Jin, I only have 3, and there's 3 main members. You're a great man, Mr. Supervising Director. I'm going to jump into the next one. You guys want to see more of what I do, full unedited reactions, all the shows on the channel, seasons ahead of what you're seeing, and hundreds of exclusives, Patreon links in front of me. If not, we're jumping into episode 5 Q&A. Comments down below, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.